Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, Conference Edition. In this podcast, we spotlight upcoming ColdFusion conferences and talk to organizers, workshop trainers, and speakers to uncover all the information you and your company needs to decide what conferences and workshops to attend and what sessions you need to see. Welcome to another Modernize or Die podcast, Conference Edition. And today, Daniel's going to be interviewing me about my workshop.
Absolutely, I am, Gavin. So, as everyone knows, we have all these awesome workshops. I'm really excited for us and Into the Box and for you to come. But specifically, Gavin, what's your workshop?
So my workshop is VueJS Spa and mobile app with REST APIs. So really, we're just going to be building a CFML ColdBox REST API powered quiz game using VueJS and deployed via Spa or Android or more.
Nice. So you say VueJS. You're just VueJS or something cool along with VueJS?
Well, yeah, I like to use Quasar, which is a VueJS framework, which has all these cool, component libraries and lots of cool features. But one of the best things is that you can write your code once and, output it to lots of different places. So you can output to Electron apps, Cordova or Capacitor apps for, iOS or Android. And then, basically, you can just sort of output what you want. And the cool thing is, if you're making a single page app, like a Spa app or a progressive web app, PWA, it does that too. So really one front end can be powered by like a ColdFusion API, and you can output all these different types of, results, and even has browser extensions now. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I know you've been talking about Quasar for a while now. I've seen some really cool things you've done. So I'm really looking forward to that. Not just the API, but I'm also looking forward to that too.
Yeah, and for those who didn't know, that Daniel's actually going to be my TA. He's my helper, so he's going to be, learning all the stuff as we prepare for the workshop. And then, the best way to learn something is to teach it. So he's going to be help you guys to get the most out of this workshop.
Absolutely, and to be fair, then they're like, Gavin needs a TA. I didn't care what the topic was, Gavin. I'm like, Gavin's doing it. I'm there.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Anything.
We'll have a lot of fun, a lot of good content in this workshop. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So tell us, Gavin, who's the audience for the workshop?
Really, this is the audience for this workshop is a CFML developer who wants to use a JavaScript framework for their front end. So powering it by a ColdFusion REST API backend. A lot of people are looking at that these days, and they're not sure which, should I use React? Should I use JavaScript? Should I write it in jQuery? And I love VueJS, and if you guys aren't sure what to use, VueJS is awesome, and using a framework like Quasar gives you all those options. So if you want like your full replacement front-end JavaScript, this is perfect. And I think it's going to be a good workshop to cover that for both.
Okay, so definitely the front-end person looking to consume APIs. What about the developer also looking to build an API?
Yeah, we'll definitely be covering that too, because obviously APIs are very hot these days. You'll learn about how we go about and build them. We'll be building a ColdBox REST API. We'll be setting up our database using migrations and things like that. So you'll learn how we build an API, and then the second part of the workshop will be basically consuming that API. And, even if you're not writing the JavaScript, it really helps to know what a JavaScript developer is looking for and what things are important to someone trying to consume your API. So I think even if you're not going to do the front end, it'll be a good workshop because you'll understand more about how it all fits together.
Yep. And from my understanding, we're doing VueJS and Quasar, but really this is going to apply to any front end, right?
Yeah, it can. Once we build the API, you can consume it by lots of other things. And sometimes you'll actually have it be consumed by multiple things. So you may have, a VueJS front end, but you may also have, a React for something else. Maybe the same REST API will power multiple apps with multiple, languages. You could have it be consumed by a command line, We do that too with ForgeBox and CommandBox. CommandBox uses ForgeBox's API.
Nice.
Endless possibilities.
I know you kind of touched on this already, but why specifically should someone take the workshop?
Well, you're going to be learning how to build a REST API using a combination of our scaffolding templates, modules like Quick, QB, CP security, routing, and you'll learn the best practices of how we do that. So, we're always working to try and improve our best practices, but you're going to be building a ColdBox REST API. So just that alone is a great reason to take the workshop. But then we'll also be looking at the VueJS and Quasar framework, which, as I mentioned before, I love Quasar, but a cool thing about it is it has that top class project initialization with the Quasar CLI. So think of Command Box CLI, how awesome it is. The Quasar one is pretty neat too. You can do a lot of cool stuff with that. It makes you super simple to get started as a developer, and then you can basically, turn your idea into a reality in crazy record time. Quasar does all the heavy lifting, and you're able to focus on the features, not the boilerplate. And really, it's like a ColdBox equivalent in the VueJS framework setup. Tons of cool plugins and modules and everything you need to know, and it's sort of done for you. And then, of course, we're going to learn how to create those single-page apps, progressive web apps, so you can deploy to Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, browser extensions. Basically you'll write one code base and we'll show you how to export to those. So we won't export all of them in the workshop, but we're definitely going to show you a good mix of them, so you'll get some experience with all of them, and then you'll know how to get going with those other ones. So
that's very cool. So I know, again, you mentioned all the different pieces, but if you're just going to list a quick bullet list, boom, 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 what is the workshop going to cover? It's going to be
again, we're going to start with a ColdBox REST API. We'll use Command Box to scaffold it out, and then we'll create some database tables with CF migrations. We'll set up our database models and our services and some quick models, and we'll use API resourceful routes. So, try and save you with the routing and everything. We'll be using Postman to preview the API responses to get an idea how that's working. Then we're going to use the Quasar CLI to create a Quasar application, and then we're going to build that application, and we're going to export it to a single page app or SPA. And that's actually what happens when you're developing it locally. You have a hot reloaded SPA app in your site, and then when you're ready, you can export it out to like a Windows app, so an exe, Windows executable. We can also do an Android APK, and so we're going to try and have some devices there, load them onto those devices, and then try and even share them on the screen so you can see how it's done. And of course, there's a lot of other things we'd like to show you. We can't fit everything in just a one-day workshop, but we're going to try and touch on API documentation, API testing, some of the Swagger UI tooling as well, and just other things that really help in the whole API and front-end world. So a lot of good stuff. We will cover a lot, but we'll have lots of extra pieces, and of course we'll give you the resources so you can go away and learn even more about all those things.
That's great. So you mentioned there's going to be a lot to get through, a lot of really cool things. So is there anything that they need to do to prepare for the workshop, and prerequisites for the workshop?
Yeah, obviously programming knowledge. We hopefully have a basic idea of API concepts, even though we will be covering them and explaining them as we go. But obviously, you should know some JavaScript and some ColdFusion. If you're trying to learn too much of that as you're going, it's going to be a little harder for you. But I'm sure everybody will be good there. Hardware, software wise, we want a laptop, and one thing you just want to know is if your laptop is a work laptop and you don't have permission to install things, you may have some issues. But we'll be using Command Box, and then obviously some JavaScript stuff. So we'll be using Node and npm as a package manager for JavaScript, and Command Box package manager for CFML, and then a code editor. VS Code is our recommendation, but you can bring your own there. And then MySQL client would be nice to be able to talk to the database. We will give you some options on databases, but MySQL 8 is what we're going to try and use. So if you have it installed locally, great. If you have Docker installed, we can give you a Docker Compose to use that. Otherwise, we can give you one, a remote database. You can just use that instead, but it's just performance-wise, it's always better to have it running locally. So we recommend that you try and do one of those methods, but we'll give you a database if you don't have it. Just wanted to let you know. So basically required is Command Box, Node and npm, Postman, an IDE of your choice, and then MySQL database client, so you can actually connect to the database. And then of course we prefer VS Code and then MySQL 8 to be installed if you have it. And then we'll give you a list of VS Code extensions too. So
nice. And then I know we'll probably do a blog post at some point to kind of list all this out as well, but I would think maybe ngrok as well, because if you're going to be having the app on your mobile phone and you need to connect into your laptop, that might be handy as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Usually I do post it somewhere, but that might be nice for us to play around with as well. So yeah, ngrok, we'll put that on maybe the preferred, just for fun.
Yep. So that's all great. So after I take it, what will I be able to do, Gavin? Tell me.
Well, you'll basically have all the building blocks you need to walk away with a REST API and a VueJS applications, and then, like I said, we're going to try and spin you up a Windows and an Android app, and then give you the tools to be able to do something for Mac OS or iOS, which, of course, that includes or requires Xcode, and that's the reason we're not going to tackle those in-house, because that can be an undertaking. But the code will be ready for you to do that. But you'll be leaving with an understanding of best practices for creating ColdBox REST APIs. You'll have an understanding of how to consume those APIs from a Vue.js JavaScript front end, and then understanding of Quasar Framework and how you can write code once and simultaneously deploy it as a website, a mobile app, and Electron app, all at the same time. So a lot of great content, and like I said, obviously you'll have to work on it and practice like anything else, but you'll have all the pieces you need to get started, and you can build an app and play with it, and right there is. I'm excited to share that. Like I said, I love Quasar. I've talked about it a lot, and we get to build a game. So we're going to be doing a little educational game. So it's going to be, a little quiz game that you can basically use it for. Actually, we're going to bring back an old ColdFusion ColdBox sort of concept and sort of bring it back in a fresh way. So you'll have to attend the workshop for that. But essentially, sorry, go ahead.
I was like, from what I understand, we'll also have some access to some Git repos after we're done too. So if you're following along and maybe you're not keeping up as much, or you just want to watch some of it at points, either way, you're going to have something tangible you can take home and play with. Yep,
and we'll definitely, it's a very hands-on workshop. We've got me and yourself, which will be the TAs. We're going to have a small group. We aim for between 10 and 15 people, so it's not too many, so we can get up and, really help everybody. And the instructions will be, simple enough that you should be able to follow along. And what we recommend is when you leave, basically start a new folder, start from scratch, following those steps again, because once you've done it again, you've worked through some of those problems and you sort of just get better and better. So we always give those steps so you can do that. So that's how I get the most out of workshops, when I can do them a couple of times and really work through them. And we'll be going through them several times. And like I said, Daniel's my guinea pig. He hasn't done a lot of this before, especially for the Vue.js and Quasar stuff. So if Daniel can follow along with the instructions beforehand, then you guys will be good too. So yeah,
absolutely. Well, like we said, the biggest thing you can do to prepare is just have those prerequisites ready. Have command box installed, all those things installed. So we start the session, we can just boom, dive in and not spend a bunch of time just trying to install some stuff.
Yep, and we'll be contacting you before the workshop with an email with just to remind you of those prereqs and maybe some links to download certain versions of things just in case. So we'll try and be prepared, so that way you guys can be prepared for the workshop.
Yeah, because it's not just command box; it's also these specific modules too that you're going to want, and things like that. We'll let you all know.
Yep, because we don't want to rely on the internet there. Sometimes when you're at a conference, it's not as good as you want, and if everyone's downloading the world, it can be quite bad. So we'll try and get you guys advanced with some of that. Be prepared. We've done enough of these. We know that we got to be prepared. So,
yep. Hey, Gavin, is there anything else you want them to know before we see you all in September?
No, I mean, obviously, you just need you to go sign up. There are quite a few spots already taken for this workshop before we even announce this video. So go sign up, get your workshop signed up before we run out of spots, because we want to have you at our workshop. If you aren't able to make it, there's plenty of other great workshops that we're offering, but we might be biased, but we think ours is pretty cool. So hopefully we'll see you there.
Absolutely. If you have any questions ahead of time, please reach out to Gavin. You can reach out to me and I'll reach out to Gavin and we'll answer all your questions.
Yep. So yeah, we're really excited to see you guys. So September 6th in Houston, Texas, and Into the Box. So hopefully we'll see you all then.
See you then.
Thanks, everybody. Show notes for this episode can be found on conference.modernize.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube playlist to find more videos just like this. Music from this podcast are used under a royalty-free license from sound.com and bluetreeaudio.com.